Have you ever looked around your life and thought, things aren't great, but they're not terrible either? Maybe you even feel a little bit uneasy about that, like you know that something isn't right, but you just can't quite find the motivation to change it. Now, if that sounds familiar, you might be caught in something that's called the region beta paradox. And I promise you, understanding the region beta paradox explains why so many people, maybe even you, stay stuck in jobs or stuck in relationships or even in routines that just kind of slowly drain their energy, but never quite reach that point of breaking them. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Lance Garrison. I'm a licensed psychologist with more than 20 years of experience, and I have the good fortune of serving as the Dean for the College of Professional Psychology at the Chicago School. Welcome back to the Daily Dose. Now, I always do this, so I'm going to do it again here today. One of these days I might stop, but before we jump in today, please take a moment, reach out, hit the subscribe button, because what that does is it'll give you access to more videos on how evidence-based psychology and Stoic wisdom can help you lead what I hope is a happier and more fulfilled life. So this idea of the region beta paradox comes from a Harvard psychologist by the name of Daniel Gilbert. He wrote a book called Stumbling on Happiness that I can't recommend enough. But in simple terms, it describes this counterintuitive truth that sometimes we recover from some of the worst experiences more quickly than we do from mildly bad ones. So let's take a little time now and unpack that. So take a moment, imagine that you sprain your ankle really badly, hurts like crazy, wildly inconvenient. But because of that, it pushes you to rest and heal and maybe even strengthen that ankle later. Now imagine it's a mild sprain, a slight ache. It's not bad enough to stop you, but it's just enough to nag you for months. And because of that, you don't address it because it's not that serious. And what happens is that over time, that mild pain lingers far longer than the big injury, the pain of the big injury ever would. That's the region beta paradox. And in life, when things get truly unbearable, we're forced to change. But when things are tolerable, when they're kind of merely okay, we often just adapt and then we end up staying in that space indefinitely. It's not like we like those situations, but it's that they don't hurt enough to actually provoke us and move us toward change. And psychologically, this paradox connects to motivation, it connects to adaptation, and to cognitive biases, which is something I've talked about on this channel before. But let's talk about motivation first. We know that research in psychology shows that people are more likely to change when they reach a certain threshold of discomfort. It's got to be discomforting enough. And this threshold is called the activation threshold. Now, everything that kind of falls below that, we just rationalize it. If we get above that threshold, we tend to act. And the paradox occurs because moderate discomfort rarely crosses that threshold. So what do? We just adapt to it. We let it linger. And then there's this thing called hedonic adaptation. And that's our tendency to just adjust emotionally to new conditions. That's why when we get a new car, we're super excited, but just for a few months. That's why when we have a stressful job, we start to feel normal. It starts to feel normal after a while. We recalibrate emotionally, which makes us feel that change is unnecessary. Now, loss aversion also plays a role. So again, from a perspective of behavioral economics, people tend to fear losing what they already have way more than they value what they could gain. So if you're in a job that pays the bills or a relationship that's fine, the risk of losing that stability often outweighs the possible benefit of something better. It's like our brains are whispering, hey, don't make things worse. But there's a cost to that mindset, and it's stagnation. So let's bring this a little closer to home, and I'll share a few examples with you. So think about your career. Maybe you've been in a job for years. You don't love it. It's not fulfilling, but it is stable. The paychecks show up on time, which is awesome. You know the routine. It's not bad enough to leave, But somewhere deep down, you also know that you're capable of doing so much more. And every year that you stay, what happens is you drift a little bit further from that potential that you know you have. If you think about relationships, you might be in a relationship that's comfortable. It feels familiar. But maybe it's not healthy. Maybe it's not growth-oriented. There's no constant fighting, but there's also no real joy. There's no real connection anymore. It's predictable. And that predictability can feel safe, even when it's suffocating sometimes. If you think about your health and your habits, maybe your diet isn't terrible. Maybe your sleep isn't great. Maybe your exercise isn't consistent. But there's nothing catastrophic going on. So you tell yourself, it's fine. But that's how mediocrity sneaks in. It doesn't come in through crisis. It comes in through the comfort of predictability. In each of these examples, fine becomes the enemy of fulfilling. Because when we tolerate just good enough, what we're doing is we're trading possibility for predictability. Now, the Stoics, especially Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, they warned us of this exact trap. And they did it a long time before psychology ever named it. Seneca wrote, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but we waste so much of it." And what he was pointing out when he said that is this very same phenomenon. And it's how people drift through life, not because of catastrophe, but because of complacency. Now, Epictetus taught that the key to freedom is self-awareness. And with that is, what that means basically is that it's the willingness to examine our judgments and our choices. And he said that no one is free who is not the master of himself. And in the region beta paradox, what we do is we end up losing that mastery. We surrender our agency to the inertia of daily life. Now, Marcus Aurelius reminded us, hey, you could leave this life right now. So let that determine what you do and what you say and what you think. So for him, urgency wasn't about panic, but it was about trying to find clarity. Recognizing that time is limited, and that limited time, recognizing that gives us courage to act, even when things are merely just fine. So the Stoics' answer to the region beta paradox is awareness plus action. They didn't believe in waiting for pain to push us. What they believed in is using reason to pull ourselves forward. So now I got to ask you, how do you know if you're in the region beta paradox? Let's talk about some of the signs associated with being in this space. Do you use phrases like, it's not that bad, or I can manage, or it could be worse? Do you feel a subtle restlessness that never seems to go away? Do you catch yourself daydreaming about change, but never acting on it? Do you find yourself minimizing your own dissatisfaction by comparing yourself to people who have it worse than you? Well, let me tell you, if you notice these patterns in yourself, it's probably time to pause and do something that the Stoics called examen vitae, which is just a daily examination of your life. So here's how you do that. So I'd like for you to try this today. If you're watching this video and you're feeling this tug, take 10 minutes today, and I want you to write down 3 areas of your life: work, relationships, and personal growth. And for each of those areas, ask yourself these questions. Am I thriving, surviving, or settling? If nothing changed in the next 5 years, how would I feel about that? And finally, what fear or belief is keeping me here where I find myself today? And if you realize that something isn't bad, but it's not what you truly want, that's your region beta. And recognition is always the first step toward release. So once you've done that, you can pick one small change that you want to make this week. Not a big giant leap, but just a step that moves you away from passive acceptance and toward much more intentional action. It's important to remember that this paradox begins to lose its power the moment you name it. And what it teaches us is it teaches us that comfort can be way more dangerous than crisis, because at least in a crisis, we move, we get out of the way. But comfort can quietly erode our potential. And it's not through suffering, but it's through the stillness that we find ourselves in the midst of discomfort. But you have the tools to see through it. You have reason, you have awareness, and you can build courage. And these are the exact same virtues that the Stoics prized. So what I would ask you to do is don't wait for pain to force you into growth. Just choose it today. Choose it now. Move not because things are unbearable, but move because you know that you are meant for so much more. If today's episode resonated with you, please like this video, share it with someone who you think might be stuck in a region beta. And then finally, subscribe to the Daily Dose for more insights on how evidence-based psychology and Stoic wisdom can help you live a happier and more fulfilled life. And remember, sometimes the not bad is the very thing that is standing between you and your best life. Thanks for watching, and until next time, please be well.